Alrighty guys, we are back for another episode of the intuitive eating series. Thank you so much for tuning in to the video today. I'm super excited to continue with this series. I feel like it's super helpful for all of you guys. I've gotten so many questions and I'm excited to answer those and help you guys navigate your transition from tracking or food rules into intuitive eating. So today's episode is going to be all about navigating the honeymoon phase. And the honeymoon phase is kind of whenever you feel like a little kid in the candy store, whenever you stop tracking your macros or counting your calories or letting go of those food rules. And if you guys have been following this series, let me remind you that in the first episode, I talked to you guys about, I kind of warned you about going a little bit crazy with food and kind of how this sort of thing can happen, that it's a journey that you're gonna have to relearn your hunger cues and kind of relearn your whole eating system. And so whenever you go from tracking your macros, I know for me, I stopped tracking and just kind of did it cold turkey, and then I was like a little kid in the candy store and I went crazy and I ate those quote-unquote like really bad foods that I never allowed myself to eat, like all the processed, all of the sugar, everything like that. I ate all of that for like 2 to 3 weeks. And you know, you get past this honeymoon phase, but it's something that I want to warn you guys about and talk about and kind of talk about how to navigate it, because I know that whenever I stopped tracking and I tried to move into intuitive eating, that's what happened for me. I went through this honeymoon phase and it was great, and then I felt like crap and my energy and digestion and everything went down the toilet. So I want to help you guys kind of navigate this phase. I always recommend that whenever you're starting this journey that you allow the freedom and just know that you're gonna get over this little honeymoon phase. It'll pass. But allowing yourself that freedom to go ahead and have those foods that you previously weren't allowed to have, that you had to say no to, the quote-unquote bad foods, go ahead and allow yourself that freedom, because whenever you're allowing that freedom to come into your head, you're going to start developing new thought patterns and new habits with food. And let's be honest, you haven't been allowed to have these foods, so you're craving them and they look appetizing and you want them because you had to say no to them. So go ahead and allow yourself to have it and experience it fully, and then just let that be part of your journey and you're going to move on from it. The most important thing to remember is that you're developing a new thought pattern. You're developing new habits with your eating. And so you really, whenever you're transitioning from tracking or counting or having these food rules into intuitive eating, you're relearning your thought patterns and your eating habits and the way that you experience eating. And so you have to start letting go of those food rules. And I know that even with, counting macros and stuff, with, if it fits your macros, it can be, you can fit a lot of things into your macros, but, you do have to say no to those things that just never fit, And so whenever you stop, you're going to automatically go to those things and you're gonna be like the little kid in the candy store. And that's okay. You're gonna have to experience that and go through that. But I want to share some tips on how to kind of navigate this phase, this honeymoon phase. That's what I like to call it. So my first tip is going to be to go back to the previous video and practice all of those mindful eating tips that I talked about. You really want to make sure that you're practicing that awareness, practicing that mindfulness, especially whenever you are just craving and wanting all of those previously restricted foods and meals, everything like that. Being aware and practicing that mindfulness is going to help you get through this honeymoon phase more efficiently and with a lot more self-compassion and love, because whenever you're practicing that mindfulness, you're asking yourself what your body needs and what your body wants. You're being slow and deliberate and intentional with your eating. So it's going to help you be a little bit more aware and maybe not go as crazy and feel so out of control with your eating. So definitely whenever you are really having these cravings and whenever you're feeling like you want to reach for all those foods that you previously weren't allowed to have, that you had to say no to, that are the bad foods, go ahead and allow yourself to have it. But before you go ahead and eat it, make sure you're checking in with yourself and ask yourself, what do I need? What is my body telling me? Where is my hunger at? and really tune in and ask yourself, is this truly what I want? And is this nourishing my soul and my body? And you know, sometimes we have foods that don't exactly nourish our bodies, you know, and we have like ice cream and all the goodies, and you know, I do it too. I eat these foods all the time because it nourishes my soul, because dessert always nourishes the soul. But anyways, you know, you want to make sure that you truly want it, and that you're not just doing it because it's like something that wasn't allowed before, so you're like, ooh, I can have this now. You want to make sure that you fully engage in the eating behavior, that you truly enjoy it. If you're gonna have it, fully enjoy that experience. You know, food is there for us to enjoy. Let's just be honest, food is enjoyable. I love food, and that is okay. Just make sure that whenever you are eating these previously restricted foods, that you are really practicing those tips that I talked about before, with being really mindful and present with your eating. Now, after you are done eating, something that can happen is you might feel a lot of guilt. I know that I did in the beginning, because let's be honest, we have these food rules and we think we might be going over with our calories or might be going over our macros. You know, we had these previous food rules, so it's kind of an automatic thought pattern to feel guilty for having these previously restricted foods or these previously restricted meals, everything like that. So just expect that that's going to happen, and be fully present and aware of it. And you have to go through these things, and you have to kind of experience that to break these thought patterns and break those habits that kind of go through your head just automatically. So the guilt may be there after you have these previously restricted foods, and after you kind of go over your macros, you know what you were having before, and if you're eating something different, that guilt can come. And just that is so normal, and I want to tell you that you're not alone, that is normal, because you're breaking a previous thought pattern. So like I talked about in that previous video, you want to make sure that you're checking in with yourself afterwards, and go ahead and write down your satiety level. Write down those thoughts that are going through your head, especially if you're experiencing negative thoughts. Write them down and evaluate them from a different perspective. If you're letting these thoughts just cycle in your head, they're going to get worse and worse. Your guilt is going to be worse, and you're not going to be able to practice self-compassion. You're not going to be able to break that thought pattern. So go ahead and write those thoughts down. Get them out of your head and evaluate them from a different perspective, from a perspective of compassion and love, and breaking that thought pattern and moving into this new beautiful space of respecting your body. Something that I found really helpful whenever I was going through this quote-unquote honeymoon phase is, you know, I stopped tracking my macros like cold turkey, and like I talked about in the last video, I wouldn't recommend that. But you know, I recommend the slow, gradual process of stopping tracking or letting go of those food rules, because it is definitely a journey and it's a process. But something that was super helpful for me is that I was wanting to just have these previously restricted foods all the time, and they were not nourishing my body, and I would end up kind of binging on these foods. And that was just because I was never allowed to have them for like 4 to 5 years, and so now I finally could, and that's all I wanted. But obviously, if that's all you're giving your body isn't getting the nutrients it needs, so it's going to keep craving those things, and it's just, you're not gonna have any nutrients in your body whatsoever. So I would really recommend that, yes, you want to have those previously restricted foods if, you know, that's what you're craving, if that's what you truly want. But you also want to make sure that you are prioritizing your nutrition. Let's say, for example, that you really want an ice cream cone, or, you know, a bowl of ice cream. But think about, before you go ahead and have that ice cream, think about and check in with yourself and ask yourself, what have I had for today, and what could my body be craving in terms of nutrients that this ice cream would provide? And most of the time, our bodies, we don't crave certain foods, we're craving nutrients. So make sure that you're checking in with yourself and thinking about the nutrients that you've already gotten in your body through your other meals. So it's okay to go ahead and have that ice cream, but make sure that you've gotten in your good nutrients beforehand. So maybe have your dinner of, you know, some good healthy fats and lots of veggies and protein, and then go ahead and have that dessert and fully, truly enjoy it. One last tip that I have for you guys for navigating this honeymoon phase is to practice deep breathing and meditation if possible. And whenever I started this, I thought that meditation was a joke. I was like, that's stupid, it's not gonna do anything for me, but it's been a game changer. It's amazing for me now. I would recommend in the beginning, just before you really want to engage in those previously restricted foods, and just generally before you eat at any point, I would really recommend some deep breathing. Even just 10 deep belly breaths is gonna be super helpful for not only getting your body ready to eat and digest food, but it's also going to help you get in line with your thoughts. It's going to decrease your stress and just help you get more in tune with yourself and your body. So by deep belly breathing, I mean that you are breathing in through your nose and really filling up your belly and then breathing out nice and slow. I would recommend 10 breaths, and then evaluate where you are, check in with yourself, all of the tips that I've given you guys before. Deep breathing and or meditation can be super helpful for getting in tune with your body, and especially getting into your thought system and kind of shutting down those food rules and the restriction, and just taking out those guilty thoughts and getting more in tune with yourself and getting in more of a compassionate state. Meditation and deep breathing could be so helpful for that. So I would really recommend doing that before any time that you eat, really, but especially before you are going to have those previously restricted foods, or if you're feeling kind of guilty about what you're eating. I think the main takeaway about the honeymoon phase with intuitive eating is that it's gonna happen, and that you are definitely going to want to eat the foods that you were previously restricted, the bad foods. You're going to want those because you've always restricted them, and now that you're allowing yourself this freedom, you're going to want to have those foods like all the time. So just remember these tips, and remember, most importantly, to be present, be mindful, try to get into your body and your mind, try to get them in sync, and practice that self-compassion and self-love, because these things are going to happen, and you are most likely going to feel guilty for engaging in those previously restricted foods. So make sure that you are really practicing these tips that I told you so that it can help you navigate this honeymoon phase. But that is going to be it for this video. We are going to have one more video for this series to go ahead and close out, and that's going to be a really good one. I'm really excited for it. So make sure to be on the lookout for that. It'll be out in the next few days. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you soon.